Battleground, New York City, the fight for your vote. Your front row seat to the battle for New York's next mayor. It's the old guard clinging to power, chasing a candidate they never saw coming. Every night, our experts break it down.
What New Yorkers want above all else is authenticity.
He's been more visible in the Hamptons this summer than he has been on the streets of New York City.
We're listening to the people who matter most, you, the voters.
He is the shining star. He's working very hard. And I think he would work hard for the city, too.
And when the candidates sit across from us, nothing's off the table. What's your plan to make New York City feel like a safer city?
S.E. Cup, that's your perception. Of course, there's a lot of crime.
So what's happening right now? Let's dive in. Welcome to Battleground NYC, the fight for your vote, where it is Friday, August 22nd, and we have 74 days left until the all-important New York City mayoral election. Why are we covering it? Because it's not just a local race. From New York to LA, all eyes are on this election, and we've got it all covered for you right here. I'm S.E. Cup. Let's get right to it. Later in today's show, we'll talk with the Gen Z candidate who's challenging longtime Congressman Jerry Nadler for his congressional district 12 seat right here in New York City. But first, as always, let's get to the news right off the campaign trail. Joining me now is Ross Barkan, a political columnist at New York Magazine's Intelligencer. Ross, welcome.
Thank you for having me. Excited to be here.
Great. So I don't know if you knew, but Eric Adams had a press conference today. Did you see it? What did you think? What did he say? What did you make of it?
Actually, I did not catch his remarks, to be honest with you. But I imagine he was defiant because that's what Eric Adams does.
Yes.
When you were calling around to my staff saying there's the announcement today that Eric is stepping down, hell no. And I am not going to interfere in any way with the process. Our communications with the district attorney's office indicated that in no way am I involved with any of the reviews that they're conducting in this manner.
You know, the latest, his former top aide, and this is Ingrid Lewis-Martin, who effectively ran New York City, was indicted on corruption charges. Other members of the Adams administration were indicted as well. Important to emphasize, these are state charges coming from the Manhattan District Attorney. So Donald Trump cannot save him this time. Adams, of course, himself was indicted last year in federal charges under the Biden DOJ. And when Trump won, those charges were dropped. So now, from a legal perspective, I mean, these former aides to Adams are in quite deep trouble. The Manhattan DA office is quite serious and is going to want a conviction unless they cut a deal ahead of time. Go to trial, it will be hard to win. So this is just kind of the latest, another pro quo corruption scandal, one of many. It's actually hard to keep track at this point with the Adams administration, administration that is going to be a one-term administration unless something extremely dramatic happens. And to be fair, I don't know what that dramatic thing would be. I think he will not be mayor on January 1st, 2026.
Yeah, I mean, it has been one thing after another dogging his mayoralty, but also his campaign, because they're running parallel to each other at this point. And he was defiant. He was defending Ingrid today in this press conference. He said, if you're expecting me to drop out, hell no, I am going to keep going. He's polling fourth. He's polling behind Curtis Lewa. And he's just keeps getting engulfed in more corruption news. And I won't even mention what happened the other day, this bizarre story of a volunteer giving a reporter a bag of chips with money in it. You're saying he cannot get past all of this, and that something dramatic and weird would have to happen?
I don't think so. No, it's been deeply unpopular for a very long time now. His approval ratings were actually created before he was indicted almost a year ago. But that indictment really sealed the deal. And the fact that Trump intervened saved him legally. I mean, he will not go to prison or stand trial. Politically, he was not saved at all. And this is
reputationally, it did nothing, right?
The worst approval ratings of any mayor in modern times since these polls were taken. I mean, to put that in perspective,
Wow.
far more unpopular than the bottom of de Blasio, the bottom of Giuliani, when
Mm,
Bloomberg had his rough stretches. This
yeah.
is politically is a spent force. And you see it in the polls. He's polling a distant fourth. He's losing to Curtis Sliwa. He's losing to Andrew Cuomo. He might
Yeah.
rise a little. My sense is Cuomo support's probably a bit soft, but
Oh,
the path to like victory as an independent candidate is hard on its own. Deeply
right.
unpopular, scandal scarred mayor would not bet on it. I think we'll have to find employment next year.
Okay, moving on. It's been a big week for Zoran Mamdani and his campaign. According to a report in City and State New York, Democratic nominee and frontrunner Mamdani raised over $1 million in private donations, more than he raised in any other previous period. This seems like a very good sign for the health of his
It
campaign.
is. I mean, he's just in a strong position now as the Democratic nominee. Hate him, and some people love him, and some do not. He won the primary convincingly. It was not that
Handily.
close, and now he plays with a stronger hand. Even though some top Democrats have not endorsed him, like Kathy Hochul, Schumer, and Hakeem Jeffries, the truth is it doesn't matter a great deal, especially since he's going to be a fundraising juggernaut. He does have more endorsements than he did in the primary. And also, he's going to get outside PAC help, something he struggled with in the primaries. Cuomo hammered him
Yeah.
with nearly $30 million. This time around, there will be outside help. There's going to be labor unions with him. So yes, he will fundraise very well. He's going to have a lot of momentum behind him, and he's very much on track for the next mayor. Just as Adams has almost no chance, I would say there's at least like an 80% chance that Zoran becomes the next mayor.
Yeah, and you wrote this week in the Intelligencer that the anti-Mamdani movement is fizzling. To what do you attribute that fizzle? And help me understand something, because I've covered a lot of campaigns. It feels like no one can land a punch with this guy, and I don't understand. There's lots to go after: his age, his experience, some of his policies. You could really attack him, and Cuomo's going after his apartment. And like, I just don't, tell me, because you're covering this,
Yeah.
why can't anyone successfully land a
Well,
punch?
Cuomo did in the primary go after age and experience. They attacked him for his policies as well, for being in favor of defunding the police, which he's backed away from. I mean,
Yeah.
they did throw the gauntlet at him. I think, I mean, something that conservatives don't like to admit, but I think there's an overlap here. I mean, Donald Trump had a lot thrown at him too, and won the Republican primary in 2016 and became president. Zoran
Right.
politically quite different, but he's also an outsider. Right now, there's a great hunger for outsider candidates for new energy. The fact
Yeah.
that he's young has worked in his favor. So I just think it's hard. I think he doesn't have a lot in his history to attack, but also the fact that he is this outsider, even for someone who's not socialist, not very progressive. A lot of New Yorkers like, you know what? Politics as usual is not working. I'm
Yeah.
frustrated at the Democratic Party. I'm frustrated at the status quo. Give this guy a shot. Just as with Trump, both in 2024 and in 16, a lot of voters felt the same way. This guy, give him a chance.
Yeah, and that's exactly what we're hearing, because, as you said, in the primary, they did go after some of this stuff. It didn't land with enough voters because they didn't care. They see him as someone new, changey, hopey, authentic. And yeah, that other stuff just is not penetrating. We'll see if that changes over the course of the general election, especially if there are debates and he's really pressed on any of this. That'll be
Yeah.
really interesting to watch. And Ross, you'll have to come back over the course of the campaign with more reporting.
Sure. Sounds good.
Thanks so much. Up next, the Gen Z candidate who's challenging an establishment candidate for his congressional seat right here in New York City. Sounds familiar. Battleground NYC, the fight for your vote. We'll be right back.
So today, I'm respectfully asking my Congressman Jerry Nadler to consider retiring. I appreciate his 50 years in office. I grew up voting for him, but we need new leaders to meet this moment.
And we're back with Battleground NYC, the fight for your vote, where we are laser focused on this New York City mayoral election. Now, a theme of this election is obviously youth and challenging the status quo, as we're seeing with Zoran Mamdani in New York, but it's not just happening in this race. Another New York City election is playing out similarly. Joining me now for the bigger picture is Liam Elkind, founder of Invisible Hands, a New York based nonprofit founded during the pandemic that delivered meals and medicine. Liam is now running to represent the same congressional district where he was born and raised. But to do that, he'll first have to unseat the 17 term, 78-year-old Jerry Nadler. No small feat. Liam, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited.
Yeah, we're happy for you to be here because you're one of these races that I think is mirroring kind of what's going on in the mayoral race. We've had another candidate on who's running for the House in Connecticut who has a kind of similar story. You're 26. What made you decide to run for Congress?
I think our country is in crisis. And as a New Yorker, one of the first things that I learned is when a crisis hits, we run to help. We do not wait. We get to work. And when COVID hit, like you said, I literally stuck my phone number on a flyer, passed it around town, said, if anybody needs a free delivery of food, call me. If you want to help volunteer, text me. I wasn't a doctor. I couldn't treat the sick. I wasn't an elected official. I couldn't pass a stimulus bill. But I was a young guy, we always said, with some extra time on our frequently washed hands. And I did something to help. And when you can do something to help, you do something to help. And 72 hours in, 1,300 people volunteered with us. And over the course of the last 5 years, 15,000 people volunteered with us, delivering food, delivering medicine to anybody who needed it. And I mean, my phone was ringing off the hook for months. If you called your government and you asked for help getting food, they would say, yeah, we can't help you, but call this number that I had stupidly put on that flyer and passed around. And as we continued our work and expanded it to focus on food insecurity, delivering food to the 75% of hungry people who don't go to pantries because of the logistical challenges and scheduling challenges and social stigma, the idea that our government would tell you to call one person and hope that that person picks up his phone is ludicrous. And I got to know so many people who were just losing faith in their government because they were reaching out for help and being told to call some other guy. I think we need our leaders to be answering the call. And now with the crisis coming from the White House, we need leaders who have the energy and the urgency and the vision, not just to meet this moment, but to see beyond this moment to the better future on the other side of this fascistic presidency that we're undergoing right now. So I think we need leaders who can be builders and protectors and fighters in this moment and not just wait and hope that it passes them by.
Were you inspired at all by Mamdani and the success of his primary?
Yeah, look, he ran a remarkable race that got 100,000 new people out to the polls. He was young, he's dynamic, he's charismatic. I agree with him on some issues, I disagree with him on others. But whether you agree with his solutions or not, he was laser focused, as you've said, on the affordability crisis that our establishment has allowed to fester over decades. And as a 26-year-old guy who doesn't have health insurance, who desperately wants to be able to afford to raise his family in the city that raised him, that resonates with me. And so I think we have to be a party, we have to be leaders who are laser focused on costs, right? We have to lower the rent by building more housing. We have to lower the cost of healthcare by passing universal healthcare. We have to lower the cost of groceries by getting rid of Trump's weird tariffs. And we have to restore our democracy for future generations. All of that is stuff that I'm excited by, and all of it is stuff that I want to work on.
Jerry Nadler has held this seat for many years. Why is it time for him to go?
Yeah, look, I think he has a remarkable record of public service. Right? He's been in office for 50 years. And I grew up voting for him, actually. But look where we are, right? I mean, people my age, we can't afford a home. We don't have healthcare. Our democracy is rigged. Our leaders are handing out potato chip bags with money while New Yorkers are going hungry. And not to mention, we have a president who is shredding our Constitution. If you're 30 years old, you have never been eligible to vote in an election where Donald Trump was not on the ballot. We keep losing. And this moment calls for leaders who are stronger, who are ready to meet this moment. It calls for someone who's going to do battle every day. It calls for someone who's going to build housing and build transit and build systems that deliver government services effectively and efficiently. It calls for someone who's going to protect civil rights and immigrants and Medicare and Medicaid and Social Security. It calls for someone who's going to fight inequality and corruption and fascism. And it's going to call for a bunch of leaders, not just me, but people across this country who are fed up with an establishment that isn't answering to their actual needs, people who are focused on the future and want to actually serve the public.
I wrote about your race for the New York Daily News, actually, because I couldn't believe what I was reading. When you announced your challenge to Nadler, his press person said, and I'm quoting, Congressman Nadler will stake his record of accomplishments against anyone, and Nadler's going to serve until he doesn't.
Yeah.
That statement of entitlement,
Yeah.
it just sounds so off right now in this climate when A, the Democratic Party is kind of in tatters, and B, the conversation right now is about how Democrats need to pass the baton
Yeah.
and move on from this gerontocracy.
Yeah.
So shouldn't the party be empowering people like you?
Yeah, I think that the more that our leaders are pushing down the hands of people who want to raise their hands to serve, rather than on fixing how we communicate, what our values are, what we're saying, how we're saying, where we're saying it, the more we're going to continue to lose elections. And frankly, a party that is, like I said, shoving down the hands of people who want to serve, I'm not sure that's a party that deserves to win elections. We have to be bringing new people into the fold. And by the way, the Republicans are way better at this. I mean, in the last 5 months, 3 House Democrats passed away. And Trump's billionaire bill, it passed by 1 vote when we had 3 Democratic vacancies. In the last 3 years, 8 members of Congress died. All of them were Democrats. We're in a new moment now. And if we don't bring younger people into the fold and tell them not just that we need young leaders, but that we're fighting for a new generation of leaders and that we're fighting so that that next generation can actually afford to live in this country, we're going to continue to lose them to the Republicans. And that, I think, is a death knell for the Democratic Party.
Okay, let's talk about this race. You're running to represent the 12th congressional district, which covers a large area of Manhattan. What are the top issues you're running on that directly impact New Yorkers? You mentioned affordability, of course. Get into it a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, look, affordability is the number one concern. When the incumbent was first elected 50 years ago, average price for an apartment was $500 a month. Now it's almost $5,000 for a 1-bedroom apartment. It's impossible to find a place to live here. We have a huge housing shortage, a 1% vacancy rate. So the number one thing is just building more affordable and market rate housing. But you know what we did instead? This is a policy choice. And what we did instead of building housing for the New Yorkers who actually desperately want to afford to live here, we built Billionaires Row, which is filled with penthouses for people who don't even live here, who spend 30 seconds a year here. I think that we need to be building apartments for the people who desperately want to live here, not billionaires who come here in between their trips to Saint-Tropez or wherever it is that they go. That's what I'm focused on. So it's affordability, it's quality of life, it's investing in the MTA. I mean, the MTA has 43% of mass public transit ridership in the country, but only gets 17% of federal funding for mass public transit. Imagine what we could do if we funded the MTA the way that we should. We could double the number of subway cars. We could build more subway stations. We could improve efficiency and reliability and safety and affordability. That is something that all New Yorkers can get behind, because unless you're an out-of-touch weirdo, you ride the subway. I grew up riding the subway. I know what it's like. And I think that you shouldn't have to be a hard scrabble real New Yorker to ride the subway. It should just be the way that we like to get around. And it should be, I remember I was at a forum for a bunch of people running for mayor, and they were all talking about how they like to ride the subway because they're a real New Yorker. And I was sitting there thinking, like, cool, great that you ride the subway, so do I. But it shouldn't have to gear up for battle to go into the subway. And I think that often gets exaggerated. But like, how can we make the subways efficient and lovely to ride on? So it's affordability, it's quality of life, it's transit, it's housing, it's healthcare. And ultimately, it's about restoring not just our democracy, but restoring trust in our democracy by actually delivering the results that make people believe in it again.
Okay, Liam, stay right there because I've got more questions for you on the other side of this break. Battleground NYC, the fight for your vote. We'll be right back. And we're back again with Battleground NYC, the fight for your vote. One more time with Liam Elkind, 26, running for Congressional District 12 against longtime incumbent Jerry Nadler. It's sort of mirroring what's happening in the mayoral race. Liam, if you're elected to the House, you'll have to deal with a president who is targeting big cities like New York. Just today, he also said he was going to target Chicago next. We know what he's doing in D.C. How will you handle that as a young, new freshman congressman with a president who's really, really tough to deal with?
Yeah, look, strongly worded letters are not going to cut it anymore. People in this district, people across the country, deserve to know that if a child is going to get disappeared and deported by a lawless president, that their congressman will be on that corner in the next hour with a megaphone demanding that child's release. Will travel to whatever foreign gulag the president has decided to stash that child in. That's the job right now. And I don't think the power comes from whatever committee you get to chair or anything like that.
Mm.
It comes from how you can inspire people and unite people behind a common vision. That's what I did leading a nonprofit delivering food. It is no different right now. We are facing a crisis, and we need leaders who can stand up to the president and his reckless actions. What does that look like specifically? I'll tell you. It looks like lobbying. It looks like organizing. It looks like boycotting. It looks like protests. It looks like putting our bodies on the line. It looks like launching discharge petitions. It looks like refusing to confirm any one of Trump's unqualified and corrupt cabinet nominees. There is a lot that we can be doing here if we stop thinking of ourselves as the minority party and start thinking of ourselves as the opposition party, because that's what we are. And I got to say, when I went to the incumbent and I asked him, what is your plan to get us back power, to stop this president? He said, there's nothing we have to do. We just have to wait. Trump's going to crash the economy with his tariffs, so we'll get back power. And the best thing you can do is donate to the DCCC. That strategy of just kind of pumping emails to people and saying, donate $10 to us by midnight or Donald Trump will murder my dog, and then calling it a day, those days are done. We need to start taking action. And there are things that we can be doing, but we have to be braver. We have to be louder. And by the way, I think that we need to free ourselves of the corporate adherence that our Democratic Party has sometimes had, right? We are fully reliant on people like donating to these huge mega institutions, and particularly reliant on corporate PACs. I mean, I'm the only candidate in this race who has taken a no corporate PAC pledge. And that makes it harder to run a competitive race, but I think it is worth it because we have to be living our values. I think all our leaders should be refusing to take a dime of corporate PAC money.
What about special interests? There's a criticism of the Democratic Party also that they've become so beholden to special interests that they're losing actual voters.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. Look, you know what most politicians do after they leave interviews like this? They start calling rich people and they start saying, will you give me money? And even if you forget about the corruption that can sometimes entail, and we're seeing with the potato chip bag, a prime example of that kind of thing, even beyond that, if the only people you're listening to are people who can afford to give $2,000 on a 30-minute phone call, you start to lose touch with what actually matters. And that's why I do think it's important that we have people who don't have health insurance, that we have people who are young, who are desperately looking around trying to afford a place to live, that we do have people who are committed to the work of public service above all else in positions of power. So I would also say this: if you are someone who thinks that the Democratic Party can and needs to be doing better, I hope you'll, first of all, go to liamelkind.com and chip in $5, $10, whatever you can. But I also hope you think about how you can get involved, whether that's organizing or lobbying your elected officials or running for office yourself, because one person is not going to do this alone. We need a mass mobilization. We need a mass movement of people. And I think all of your viewers can be a part of that.
Why do you think the New York City mayoral race is such a national story? Why are Democrats really, really looking at this race to see what's possible, or maybe to see what kind of trouble they're in? Read those tea leaves for me.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, I'm not focused on the national party so much. I'm focused on my race and how I can best be of service to my community and my district. I have a dream of what this city and this country can be. Right? This city, in some ways, I think, is emblematic of what our country can be, the aspirations, right? Excelsior, ever upward. We're a city that piles on top of each other, sky high, from every walk of life, from every country on earth. And because of that, not despite it, but because of that, we create a uniquely desirable place to live. That is something that's really special. At the same time, we're the richest city in the richest country in the history of the world. And I think we can be doing better. I think we can afford cheaper rents. I think we can afford universal health care. I think we can afford to have cleaner, safer, more efficient public transportation. And we can afford to stand for our values and not hand over the keys to Donald Trump and his merry band of fascistic lunatics.
Well, you've got a hard road ahead. I don't just mean in this election, because Jerry Nadler is a formidable force, but if you go to Congress, it is tough. And there are forces at work that are tough for even the most seasoned political operative. But I really am inspired by the way you're talking. It's hopeful. It's not the doom and gloom we hear from so many, Republicans and Democrats who've been in Washington for a long time. So I'm really glad that you came on to tell your story and to introduce yourself to people. And I hope you inspire other people, young people, to take on the 17-term, incumbent, or to take on the status quo, because frankly, Congress is a real crappy place to be. And we don't want people like you to be so turned off from it that you just decide to stay home. So thank you for running, and thank you for coming on Battleground.
Thank you
We'll
so
be
much.
back next week, Monday through Friday, for the rest of this election. Thanks for tuning in.